It's Bourbon Night live. How's everyone doing out there?
Hi.
Welcome
Happy
in.
Sunday.
Yeah, it's another Sunday.
Another dry Sunday.
It's still January, everybody.
Just this one and one more. And then we'll be back to your normal, Well, then it's the Bourbon Bowl. So
right.
It's like we're going dry, just jump right back in. Probably I don't know. Last year was the most we drank on a live episode the entire year.
I would call it our wettest episode if we're going from dry to...
Let's not.
Yeah.
No, it's funny, but upon a rewatch of last year's Bourbon Bowl, we were like, ooh.
Wow.
Maybe not that much this time.
Ooh, where was the ref? Oh, yeah. Well, last year was Todd Cooper.
He had a lot of other things
He had a lot of,
on.
yeah. It's going to be Perry again this year playing ref for us, and I think we'll be able to take some of the technical duties off of him, and I'll be doing it.
Yeah, because we didn't have this full setup.
That's right.
Last year. I'm very thankful for our setup.
Yeah.
It's the reason why we can have guests on now.
Exactly.
And make it more seamless. I didn't say seamless.
No.
You're getting there.
Because I'm still...
I can't critique it. I don't do any of that.
Where's the button?
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, if you all are participating in Dry January...
Or even Dry Week.
Stay strong. If you're not... We're
Good
jealous.
for you.
We're
I'm
jealous.
a little jealous.
We're going to bring on two people who when I told one of them that we were doing Dry January, I think there was just laughter laughing in the face. Well, why?
That's generally the reaction that we get, though. So.
As it probably should be.
Yeah, I think we're the outliers here.
Yeah, but we're gonna go ahead and bring them on. Make sure I unmute them first. Please welcome to the show Ryan Cecil and Kendrick Coleman. How are you guys?
Well, I'm gonna drink enough for both of you tonight. So yeah,
good.
Ryan,
Awesome.
we're gonna take care of it. So don't you worry. I'm glad you didn't call it like moist February or something like that. You're trying to get to like the wetter or whatever. Yeah. So all the cringe words, just put them all in there.
No, moist. Only appropriate when you're talking about cupcakes. I feel like. But
whatever you say, Chad.
Yeah.
Whatever you
Or brisket.
say.
Yeah.
Or brisket.
Or brisket.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's good. Brisket. I like that. I like that better.
Thanks for joining us, you guys. We're happy to have you on.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us. I'm excited.
Of course.
Long-time
I'll just be
fans
here
of the
sitting
show,
my
so excited to be on it.
Oh,
And
thank
likewise.
you. Same here.
Long-time listeners, first time having you all on to the show. Yes. There we go. So we got some people rolling in here. Welcome to everyone. Seeing a lot of regulars, seeing our mods here in the house. Earlier today, we put out on our Patreon page that if anyone had any questions for you guys, to let us know. So we will occasionally be
Peppering those in.
But we kind of want to start taking a page from your all's book with some icebreaker questions that have nothing to do with bourbon.
Love it.
So I want to know, has there been a movie that you have watched twice in one day?
Well, I can just tell you, I've got a big affinity. It might not be twice in one day, but definitely hit the series. And there's probably two of them because I'm a big fan of the 80s and huge fan of Back to the Future. So I know I've seen Back to the Future is probably 1, 2, and 3 back to back on the same day. And of course, I'm a big fan of The Karate Kid. And now with Cobra Kai, I just binge it nonstop.
Wait, did you guys just become best friends?
Yup. No, you guys did a Miyagi-Do pick, right?
Well, it was actually a suggestion from one of our Patreon members. Was our Russell's pick, and that was kind of when it was starting to really get hot. And they said, "Why don't you do a Cobra Kai versus Miyagi-Do pick?" And I was like, "Perfect. Why not? We'll just combine two of my favorite things and make it happen." I'm cool. It's glad to hear you're a Cobra, you're a fan as well. I actually have a Cobra Kai.
I'm out. I'm out of here on this one.
I'm with you, Ryan. I'm like,
go ahead and take you off screen real quick.
That's right.
That's it. I actually have a Cobra Kai gi that was a Halloween costume from probably, 9-10 years ago. So I've been around. I love me some Karate Kid.
If I had known that, I really would have asked you to wear it tonight.
So. It's literally in this closet right here. I might go get it.
All right,
You don't
we
want to
might
do
have to
that.
take a little break and do that. Ryan, what
We'll see
Halloween costume do you have on standby?
Oh gosh, not many. I
No?
did have a Power Rangers outfit growing up, like the Green Ranger. I was obsessed with him.
Sweet.
So
Yes.
Sweet.
my grandmother made me one, and like I wore it all the time, like to bed, like for 2 weeks straight when she first got
To
to me.
school.
Yeah, anywhere and everywhere. Huge
Nice.
Power Rangers, Ninja Turtles fan back in the day. But
Mhm.
movies, I mean, I know I've watched Dumb and Dumber old school multiple times in one day. You know, just in college or at high school, I can watch Dumb and Dumber like 30 times in a day. There's so many great dumb one-liners in that movie. It just like I just love stupid comedies, and I can binge watch those all day long. For a serious
feel ya.
movie, maybe Saving Private Ryan. I think I've watched. I love that movie.
Okay. As
What
far
about you?
well, that I've actually literally watched more than once in a day. It was when I was a kid, and it was Who Framed Roger Rabbit. I don't know
It's a good one though.
Oh,
what
yeah.
about that movie, but I watched it and I
You were
was
probably
like,
trying to figure out how they made it.
I want to watch that again. Yeah, cartoons and humans together.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like Chad was the kind of kid who was like, wait a minute, how did they do this? I have
Yeah,
to
a little
watch.
bit. A little bit, yeah.
Mine was Never Ending Story.
Mm,
Anytime
okay.
I was
that's a good
sick,
one.
I would just like watch it all day, but you know, back
Yeah.
in, you had to eject the tape, rewind it, whatever.
Why'd you have to eject it first?
Well, you didn't.
Did you? No. Oh, did you have that like Corvette? It looked like a Corvette, and it popped up, and it was
We did have
just
something like that.
made to
just made to
rewind?
rewind, yeah. Anyways,
Wow. We
but
did.
yeah, that was the only downside of
Yeah, 'cause
rewatching the same movie over and over again back then is that you
Less-
had to rewind it.
less wear and tear on the VCR if you took it out and put it in its own
Little
rewinder. Man, and
Then
we
you had
lost
to
everyone in the
Go
chat.
back to Blockbuster and everything like that. Those were some good
Oh
memories.
yeah.
Right. Please be kind, rewind. Got our first super chat of the evening. This is from Brothers Bikes and Bourbon. Whoops, that's the wrong one. Here we go. There we go. Now it gets on screen. Just as, yeah,
Just said
super chat.
super chat.
To say hey.
Thank you.
So this is a very odd cheers, but
Tea and whatever's in there.
yeah. You guys, please
They're
properly
secretly bourbon in
cheers
there,
them.
we know.
They're drinking for us. You'll never know.
You'll never know. It's a Black Glencairn. You'll never know. How will they know?
Smart.
No, I've been good. So basically, you know, I know you guys have told your story on your all's own podcast and on others. So you know, with a lot of your all's people might be tuning in, don't want to hear the same old. So we're gonna try to kind of run it in a different route if we can. But I kind of wanted to start way back when you were just bourbon drinkers. And first of all, how you all met, and then Ryan, you were the one who actually had the idea for the podcast first, right? Just kind of give the origin story of how you all got together and decided, you know what, we need to talk about this and people need to hear it.
I feel like this is the question we get all the time.
I know, so there
So
you
you
go.
want to ask it to them?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Kenny and I met through our wives, actually. They kind of knew some mutual friends, and we would hang out at different gatherings and whatnot. And I had a derby party every year, and you know, at Kenny, the first year he came, he brought his own like mint julep mix, like homemade, or not mix, but a homemade like batch of Old Forester 100 proof mint julep, and I was like, you know what? I love mint juleps. I want to try it, you know? So I tried. I was like, this is the best damn mint julep I had. And then everybody like proceeded to get blackout from that mint julep mix because it was so good, including Kenny himself, I think. But
Yeah, very true.
anyways, he would come to our parties. You know, we would talk bourbon, you know, this and that. Nothing like ever about a podcast or this or that. The podcast idea actually came about. So I own a lawn care business and a pest control business. So I work in my vehicle a lot. I'm driving around, you know, listening to podcasts. When I'm working, I'm listening to podcasts. And I was huge fans of like Tim Ferriss, Joe Rogan, all those shows. And I was like, you know, I'm going to start a lawn care podcast, you know, about doing lawn care, how running a business, this and that. And, you know, I kind of did some research, and at the time I just didn't think there was that much interest. And actually my brother-in-law who was employed in the bourbon industry. He was like, man, and I was telling him about this idea. He's like, man, you grew up in Bardstown and you know everybody in the bourbon industry. Why don't you do a bourbon podcast? And I was like, that's a great idea. And so I was like thinking it through, and I was like, well, I'm from Bardstown. I know how to use a computer. I don't really know how to record. I don't know, like, this is not my forte. And Kenny, came from the tech background, and he was a bourbon fan. He had started collecting bourbon, getting the bug. And so I reached out to him. I was like, hey man, you want to do a bourbon podcast? And he's like, well, what's our angle? And I was like, I don't know. We're just going to record, talk to people and this and that. And so he kind of really well thought it through. And so that's kind of the genesis of the podcast.
Okay. So Kenny was like, what's our angle? And you're like, I don't know. Let's just do it. And you're like, okay. So
yeah, pretty much. It's one of those things that I call myself the dream crusher sometimes, because if somebody comes to me with an idea, I'll usually say, there's probably somebody else that's already done it before you, or they're going to execute it on better than what you can do anyway. But at the time, there was really only probably 2 podcasts that were out there. And I always want to give a shout out to Mark Gillespie from Whiskey Cast, because he was a big cheerleader of us early on and stuff like that. And there was a few other ones, but Mark was it's very much B2B, very much, news, and it's the whole whiskey scene, not just bourbon. And there was some other ones where people were sitting around a microphone, holding their glass and going, "Oh, I'm drinking Elmer T. Lee. It smells like caramel and vanilla." Like, I don't want to listen to that. Like, I want to listen to a podcast. I want to learn something. I want to come away with it. So I took a note from my manager at the time. He runs another successful podcast called The Cloudcast, and it's all about bringing on CEOs and tech startups and all this other kind of stuff to have them tell their story. And I said, that's what's missing. Missing a voice from the inside. How can people get a connection to the brands that they know and love? Like, if you are a fan of Maker's Mark and you want to know where that iconic red wax came from, like, you get to hear that from Bill Samuels Jr. Like, that's a really cool opportunity, and we had the mechanism to be able to get it out to a lot of people. And at the time, I mean, podcasting was podcasting. Nobody really took it seriously. That narrative has shifted over the past few years, and now there's a lot more podcasts that are coming out of the market. And I'm just glad that we were one of the first early movers to be able to do that and really start making those connections, finding the right people, and bringing on a lot of good guests that really kind of spearheaded our, kind of where we are today, because we were able to kind of get in the door. I mean, early on, you call Buffalo Trace and if you try to do it now, so call Buffalo Trace and say, hey, can we get Harlan Wheaton on the show? They'll be like, no, I don't know who you are. You're not GQ magazine. You're not, whatever. But, back in 2015, or actually, 2015, it was calling up Buffalo Trace or sending an email and be like, oh, absolutely, come over. We'd love to be able to have you. Like, It was just a different time back then. And so it was really cool to kind of see, how we were able to kind of get in those doors, as well as some of those early on interviews that we were able to have with folks like Al Young and people that just aren't around anymore. We got the opportunity to really capture those stories and share them with the world, and people can still go back and they can hear him in our archives. And it's just one of those cool things that I think that we've really been able to, find this sort of new niche that people can really grasp onto, and they can relate to it as well. If you're a fan of Four Roses, like, why would you not want to listen to something like that? You get to really hear some real history about the brand. But I will always preface it that Ryan calls me the tech guy, but man alive, what you're listening to right now, these microphones, these didn't exist when we first started. We went through a few generations of equipment, and now we finally have broadcast level quality stuff. But holy moly, if I could go back and change.
Do you ever go back? Do you ever go back and listen and are like, woo?
Oh, yeah. So we actually are.
We do that all the time. Like, I always tell people, I'm like, please don't watch our first episode. It's like one of our most viewed episodes. I'm like, please don't.
And now it's like the first 2 years.
Yeah.
Please don't watch the first, and then next year it'll be, don't watch the first 3 years.
Like, we hadn't gotten the lighting right. I was looking into the wrong camera for most of it. It's not great.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had our
own. Relate.
Yeah, we had our bunch of stumbles early on too, and that's just one of those things that I wish we would have done a lot better in the very beginning. I felt like if we would have done better with our quality at the very beginning, we probably would have held on to more listeners. But the good thing is that bourbon category is growing, and so if they listen to the newer episodes, they can see what they're going to be listening to. So if they go back to the older ones, I always preface it that it gets better, but we did end up, and we're still sort of wrapping it up right now, going through a big migration project where we are remastering all like 300 episodes that we had done at the very beginning. And so we're outsourcing that to somebody else, just because at the very beginning, we didn't know what we were doing. We're not audio engineers. And now we have the right people on staff to be able to go through, do some light cleanup on it, making sure that they're nice and leveled and everything like that. So you're not in your car changing the knob up and down because somebody's screaming or not. And it's just one of those things that it took a long time to realize that we're not audio engineers, but we finally got some of the right people to help us figure this out along the way.
Yeah,
just don't
funny,
don't put Jar Jar Binks in it or something, because it sounns like you're George Lucasing it. So don't just like add special effects. That's all I ask.
Yeah. Not
for no reason. Go ahead.
It's funny. Like, no, I was gonna say, like, the first 10 episodes, I was doing everything. I was, I would record, edit in GarageBand and this and that, and like I didn't know what I was doing. I was like, I'd YouTube like how to edit a podcast in GarageBand, and like very basic stuff. And it only took about 10 episodes. Kenny's like, yeah, I'm going to take this part over, and I was like, oh, good. Thank God. I don't know what I'm doing. And it's been much better ever since. So
nice. Well, I want to catch up on some super chats here from Brian Berenicky. I know he's shared with us some Pursuit series throughout the years.
Yeah, he said, is it strange that I look forward...
Yeah.
He is. Him and Tammy. They're so sweet.
Yeah.
He says, is it strange that I look forward to drinking apple cider vinegar now to get some flavor? How many days are there in January? Apple cider vinegar cheers all.
Man.
It's something you definitely have to get used to.
Yeah.
Right?
Wowza. Yikes. Tony Joey Bag of Donuts. What's the thing? There we go. Saying Heineken 0.0 is not a substitute for the real thing. 8 days left. How did Friday go? Okay, so Friday...
We did a barrel pick.
Damn you, Tony.
It was scheduled during way before dry January was in plans. So obviously, like, there was a minimal amount of bourbon that had to be drank because we can't not drink it and do a barrel pick, right? Like, it's just something we can't do. So 1 out of
31 days is
and even still, like, it was
good.
5 pours of each, and they were quarter-ounce pours, and I didn't even finish any of my pours. So you did.
I had to get more. Yeah,
it's okay. I'm more committed than you. And everything. It's not your fault.
Yeah. Or am I more committed to the pick?
Oh, I don't know. Or am I just better taster that I know sooner than you do?
Yikes.
Maybe that's it.
Moving on to Joe Carter saying, sorry I missed the question notice. I'm cracking Pursuit United tonight. What can you say about it?
Well, thank you, Joe, for the support.
Yeah. we will get to Pursuit United
shortly.
Yes, shortly. So thank you for those super chats.
Just going back to what we were talking about a second ago. Oh, clink. Here.
It's all right. There we go.
I feel like it might seem more... It's just that it doesn't feel like it's been that long since 2015, but it really has, because if you think about it now, like, it may seem a bit more obvious that, bourbon drinkers with, like, the huge, rise in bourbon popularity would want to hear these unique stories from the distillers and stuff, but being in this area, I don't think, like, we realized, and I think it's super impressive that you guys were able to zoom out to that level and realize, like, we have access to all these people and all this information, and that's what's missing here. I think that's super impressive that you guys had that, like, ability to have that kind of sight at that point in time.
Well,
and,
I grew up around...
And take that direction.
Yeah. I grew up around a lot of these people, and they're characters. They're interesting people. Everyone that's in the bourbon industry is got a story. They're funny. They're really nice, hospitable people. And so it's like, when you go on a bourbon tour, and, back then they really stunk. It was like, 51% corn, whatever, just very generic, nothing like unique or cool about any experience, 5 or 6 years ago. And I'm like, but when I went to like Napa or Sonoma and you like got to meet like the purveyor or this or that, and you met with them, talked the stories that, and bourbon is all about the stories, even with the brands and the labels, it's a story you connect to, and the people that are behind it are no different. They have such interesting backgrounds and stories, and so that's why I think it's been such a. I don't know if it was foresight. We just kind of stumbled into that part of it, but it's definitely comes with this industry for sure.
Right.
Yeah,
I do love that it's going that direction, though, because it feels like for a while there, if you took a tour, it felt like you were taking the same tour over and over again, like you said. It was just like the basic stats about what is bourbon, and this is where it comes from, and less about like their unique stories. So I think it's cool that's been moving that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got kind of lucky, I'll be honest with you. It was just a really good recipe for success that has kind of, as mentioned earlier, just kind of carved a path for itself. And now we probably field 5 to 10 emails every single week of somebody that wants to come on because they want to tell their story. But we have to be very selective about who we have on and kind of know exactly, do a little bit of research to kind of figure out, like, is it really a story, or is it you just want to come on and plug your really young craft whiskey? So we definitely have to be very cognizant of that and making sure that we share the stories that we know our listeners are going to care about. It's one of those things that I'm very data driven. So I can go back and I can look at our 497 episodes of everything that we've ever published, and I can see which ones do well and which ones don't do well. And so it's very easy to kind of look and see, okay, we know these types of episodes are going to get the listens. These ones really aren't. And so we're continually just trying to refine that and pivot to continually make the best product we can for our listeners.
Yeah, and
It's
Kenny
like
does a
talking
good
to
job too. Yeah, and Kenny does a great job with our Patreon community and our Discord channel. We're like, you tell us what you want to hear. We're really good at listening to our community, and they've been great at instrumental in giving us which paths we should go. It's been a instrumental part of our success too, is our community behind us.
Yeah.
Totally,
Same.
because Kenny, I'm a stats guy too on YouTube, and you can definitely it doesn't take long until you kind of figure out the formula or the equation of what videos are gonna make it, and you want it. I know there's a part of you that wants to kind of just go that route, but then also for us.
Well, there seems to be a balance.
Yeah, and I'm sure you guys are the same way. Like, obviously, if we just started putting out content that we know is always going to be a home run, it's going to get stale. The same thing with you all on the podcast.
It loses its effect at some point.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I'm sure with you guys, you feel the same way. Very much sort of like a balancing act.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that we've got our Rolodex of home runs that we know of people that we can have on. And it's tough to be able to talk to a lot of the inquiries that come in, and they say, hey, we'd love to come on your podcast. And I say, okay, cool. Tell me about your whiskey. Oh, we're 3 or 4 years sourced from MGP. We're only distributed in Pennsylvania. Well, okay, you're not going to come on. I'm sorry, right? Like, that's just one of those things that we've got to make sure that we hit our national audience, and we've got to make sure that we're appeasing to people that are in Texas and Florida and California and everywhere else that they're looking for a bottle on the shelf. And, of course, hats off to Blake at Sealbox. If you can get it there, great. But we want to make sure that we are hitting the more mainstream as possible. And I think that's one of those good things is it'd be easy to get, bitter and say, oh, all these other podcasts stole our idea and they're doing interviews and all this other kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, like, there's so many stories that we can never get to. And so there's room, as I mentioned, for other people to come in. And that just kind of goes back to the very beginning, is we're continually pivoting and trying to find new ways to talk to our audience and find new and interesting topics. And I was on another show not too long ago, and somebody said, you all are like authorities in bourbon now. I said, I mean, I don't feel that way. And they go, well, yeah, I mean, everybody pays attention. Like, they care about what you say. When did that happen? I said, honestly, I don't know. But there was one of those things
Isn't that crazy?
it was kind of a light bulb moment when I said, well, you're kind of right, only because, Ryan and Fred and myself, we now record episodes with just the three of us. And those end up being some of our most popular episodes because we talk about some sort of cultural topic that people do or don't care about it, but a lot of people do care about it. And I think that's kind of what gives us a little bit of that authority into it, is that we can be educated on a lot of these subjects too.
Sure. Yeah. And you guys are the official podcast of bourbon.
That's what
so
I
it's
was
like,
gonna say.
Boom, it's right there. It's right there in the title. So.
It says it on the website. It's got to be true.
Yep.
Yeah,
It's on the internet.
It's on the internet.
Definitely 100% true.
Definitely. Let's get a fact checker on that.
Yeah.
All right, catching up on some super chats again. Another one from Brothers Bikes and Bourbon. This time they got a comment in here. It says, back to Sarah's movie. I love Never Ending Story. I read the book after seeing the movie. I named my white 2016 Triumph Speed Triple R Falcor.
Falcor.
Wow, that's a long title.
The other Neverending Stories were a little weird. I think it was like the second one was really weird and the third one was good again.
I can only really remember
The second
the
one was
first
kind of trippy, I think.
Could be. Our friend James Wolverton here, super chat, saying love how you guys are always open to collaboration and work in the social media bourbon community. Keep up the awesome work.
Thanks,
Thank you, James.
James.
Appreciate that. And from Brian Brennicky says, my story is I need a dry January after that peanut butter whiskey Kenny sent to me. There's got to be a story there, huh?
Yeah, I can tell a little bit of a story. I don't want to give too much of it away. But you know how, we're in bourbon media. We get a lot of bottles sent to us. And I said, I think we had a conversation about 2 years ago. I was like, all right, there's so much stuff here that I'm never going to drink. What do we do with this? And so we kind of made it like a raffle thing in our community. And I said, if you want free whiskey, put your name on here. And we did it the first time this year where we did a big Zoom chat with anybody afterwards. And so they could come on and they can open the package in front of everybody and take the first drink. And Brian was a lucky winner of some random peanut butter whiskey that came from some random distillery.
I love that idea, though.
Nice.
Because, okay, just to talk about that unique problem for a second, it's really hard to talk about that problem without sounding like a complete asshole. Like, anytime people are like, you guys have a lot of whiskey, right? And I'm like, I know, it just keeps showing up. Like, what do you...
And people don't
in all of our
understand
life,
like,
I could never
half
drink
of it's
it.
undrinkable. Half of it's undrinkable. So.
Right. And so it's just like, what do you do with all of it? And where do you store it? And people are like, oh, must be nice. And I'm like, no, really, this is a problem.
Yeah, it's not good whiskey. It's bad. And that idea was much better than mine, which was, I was like, we should, around Christmas, just go and drop it off to homeless people on the street. Like they're going to drink anyways, so it's like, let's give them all this, to show up. And like, thankfully, Kenny's wife was like, there's only a few people that they could track that back down to, and it'd probably be you all,
Yeah.
Like homeless people are drinking 80 bottles of craft whiskey,
So it's sort of like Toys for Tots. It's just a little different.
It's one approach. It's one approach you could take.
Yeah.
No, I love the idea, though, of just like giving, because, it's all kind of like a life cycle of things, right? You get bottles because of your following and the community that you've built. And so then, therefore, when you can't use them all, they go back into that kind of a cycle.
Sure.
I think that's nice.
Lovely.
I put it as a kind of a thing that said, it's not going to do me any good for it to just sit on the floor here at my house. So let's put it in the hands of other whiskey drinkers, and maybe they'll get some extra social media attention out of it. So that was my excuse out of it.
No,
Oh,
I
nice.
like that.
Yeah. Makes sense. I like it.
But yeah, it's just like one of those challenges that's really hard to talk about because everyone's like, what's wrong with you? Why are you complaining about this?
First world problems.
Right,
type of
exactly.
thing, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So, you guys developed the podcast, get the new equipment, you get on your skills.
You become the official podcast of Bourbon.
Official podcast of Bourbon. And then, I want to know what took you then from bourbon content creators to wanting to be whiskey producers.
Yeah, I'll kind of take that one. So there was an episode that we recorded. It was a Bourbon Community Roundtable. I forget how long ago it was, but we talked about this brand called Doc 52. I think that's what it was. And so this is a brand that was coming up out of this store in Memphis, just a local liquor store doing their own private label. And we said, this is pretty cool, but we know that this isn't new. I mean, pharmacies, grocery store chains, they all used to have their own private label whiskey back in the day. And we just said, all right, that's it's just a cool new spin on an old idea. And about 2 weeks later, I get this phone call. This guy says, hey, I helped build that brand. Would you be interested in doing your own? I said, talk to me more. So I come to find out he's a barrel broker in Memphis, Tennessee. And he said, depending on the day, I got 2,000 to 5,000 barrels in inventory. You can come down and pick and choose any barrels you want. And that sounded almost too good to be true. So we also kind of went down the path of saying, okay, well, what kind of barrels do you have? And he goes, well, we got some young Kentucky stuff. We got some MGP stuff, but most of our age stock is all Tennessee. And that's when we said, we're out. Like, we don't even want to do this. And he said, well, I'm going to be up in Louisville in a few weeks. I'll bring you some barrel samples. If you don't like them, we can go our separate ways. Not a big deal. But we ended up going and meeting him at a bar here in downtown Louisville. Super nice guys, like had a really good head on their shoulders and stuff like that. And so we got our barrel samples. Ryan comes to my house the next day. And this was also the year that Henry McKenna was the breakout superstar whiskey of the world, whatever it was. And so I grabbed the bottle of Henry McKenna. We went and took these barrel samples outside. And I said, if one of these barrel samples is better than Henry McKenna, we'll do this. And we tasted through a few of them, but there was one that stood head and heels above Henry McKenna, and we said, all right, we're in. So make a phone call, and we said, earmark that barrel. And that barrel ended up becoming Pursuit Series Episode 1 is what that barrel ended up becoming. But we went down to Memphis to the broker, and he had, I think, Ryan, like 18 barrels there on day one for us or something like that.
Yeah, 18, 9, 10, 14 year, Tennessee barrels all lined up for us.
Yeah. And so we were going down and we were just going to select one more. We ended up selecting two more. And anybody doesn't know, like these barrels are like, $3,000 to $5,000 a piece. So before we even had a business plan, we're already, $10,000, $12,000 in the hole. And so we're sitting there and, we make a few phone calls. We call Blake because this is right before Sealbox even launched. And he said, tell us how this is going to work, because we couldn't go the traditional marketing route. We couldn't do 3-tier distribution because we have a national audience. Like, how are we going to get one barrel across the nation? And so that's really where we started stress testing Blake as well. Kind of saying, hey, that was really the first two barrels that we went up for sale. We stress tested them pretty hard because I think that was the first time that he sold, 2 barrels in the span of an hour, because he used to get notifications on his iPhone every single time there was a sale. And I think after that, he might have had to start silencing those notifications. But it was definitely early days for both of us in regards of, shipping and all that sort of stuff and productizing. It was a lot of things to kind of stumble through, but we ended up doing pretty good and, just doing a bunch of single barrels for a while. And the single barrel thing was good, but it's taxing because there's a lot of waste. It's as much as us whiskey geeks love single barrels from a producer standpoint, it's a pain in the ass. It is terrible. But I'll kind of stop from there and let Ryan kind of talk about how it led into doing the blended side of things.
Yeah, sure. So that was, we went down, and it's amazing now that we turned down 9 to 10-year-old, 14-year-old whiskey. We were that choosy, and now we can't even buy like 4 or 5 year whiskey, and we're paying the same amount for 4 or 5 year whiskey now that we were for 14-year-old whiskey. But anyways, that's neither nor here or there. So yeah,
well,
the single barrels.
Around about what year? Around about what year was this?
That was 2018, I think.
2018. That's what I was gonna guess.
Okay.
2018 is when we started, but we had, I think, another 2 years in there of basically we made a few trips down to Memphis, and every single time it was the coolest barrel pick you've ever been on, because they would probably have 50 or 60 barrels laid out for us, and we would do that over the span of 2 days. And we'd go through and taste, and we would reject probably 85% of what we tasted through, and we felt like we were really just picking the best of the best. But now in hindsight, we go back and we're like, shit, I wish we'd have kept more of those barrels.
I know.
That's amazing, though. Oh, what an experience.
It was awesome. And, we're in the whiskey media, and, we couldn't just like throw something out there that's mediocre. We're very insecure people, or at least I am. And so it had to be really good, to pick it, especially when we're selling Tennessee stock, because, it was a pretty common source product for some, and two, it has that note that some people don't, or that people dislike. So we tried to find barrels that did not like that. But the way we got started with the small batch is our broker kept pushing us. He's like, y'all are killing us with these single barrels coming down here. You know, we're rolling out 60 barrels. You're picking them. He's like, you got to do a small batch. And I'm like, well, give me something I can blend, and forever he'd be like, try this, try that. And it just didn't cut the mustard. And then finally one time he's like, I got these barrels that we bought, 3 years ago. They're going to turn 4 in a few months. Why don't you try them? And it was from a distiller in Tennessee. And we tried it, and I was like, holy cow, this is really good for 3.5-year-old whiskey. And, it was missing a few things, but it was really good. And I was like, man, this would make a great base product for a blend. But it's Tennessee again, and you're like, we just don't have a Tennessee product. We're from Kentucky,
We're all from Kentucky, yeah.
Yeah. And at the time, we had bought some Heaven Hill barrels. Barton was readily available like it is, the 6-7-year-old stuff, and then the 11-12 was pretty available. And then we had a good relationship with Finger Lakes Distilling up in New York. We had bought some single barrels off them, and so I kind of bounced the idea off him. I'm like, hey, what if we got this we got this Tennessee distillate we really like, but I'd like to bring in yours to kind of round it out some. And he's like, yeah, if y'all do that, I'm in, And so I did it, and I was like, this is great, but it's Tennessee and New York. Once again, we can't be two podcasters from Kentucky with a Tennessee and New York.
I completely understand.
Yeah. And so tried it with Heaven Hill, and Barton, and got some blends that were pretty good. But, on the source market, it was like the barrels would come available, and then you're like, well, send me a sample. I want to try it just so I can blend it in, make sure it fits in our profile. And then you're calling the next day, and you're like, or even that night, and you're like, all right, we'll take 10 of them. And they're like, nope, they're all sold out. And you're like, what the hell, And then so we're like, this source path, we just got to do something. We can't rely on, the source market always. And so we had reviewed I think it was Chicken Cock rye, and it was BBC's first distillate really out on the market. A 2 or 3 year rye at the time. And I was like, man, this is really good. And I was like, Bardstown's got to be having, they've been in business for 5 years now. They got to have something coming on. And so I called them, and they were like, yeah, we got some turning 4, in about 6 months. And so I'm like, well, will you sell it to us? And they're like, yeah. We'd love to work with you guys. So they invited me and Kenny down, and we got to taste all their mash bills, that were available. And we found one that we really liked, and it worked within the profile. And so that is kind of how our first small batch product called United. So it's a blend of 3 different states, 3 different distilleries, because when you're in the source market or blending, a lot of people were doing MGP. There still are. Or Barton or this or that, and which those are all great, and the people that are doing a fantastic job. It's great whiskey, but we just didn't want to do that again. It's like we thought this would be something unique, and we would be able to partner with these distilleries and say, hey, we're not distillers, but we're taking this fantastic distillate they're making and blending it, and we're making it all about them. They're the stars of the show. We're just putting the pieces together and offering a great product. So we thought it was a win-win for everyone involved.
Yeah, the sum is greater than the parts. And what I also love about it is, you could almost say, this is obviously an overused expression, but, it's a bourbon for bourbon drinkers made by bourbon drinkers, And basically what I just mean about that is because, as bourbon drinkers, we want as much transparency as possible, and you guys do that on your stuff. You list everything that you can, where it's from, and everything you can say without violating NDAs. You're always talking about. So that's something that we always
admire.
Admire about the Cecil and Coleman, the CNC Bourbon Factory.
I love
That's
that.
what you should have called it. I'm just saying.
But I like that bourbon.
I think so. Yeah, I think that was probably one of the things that we looked at that as an opportunity to really kind of show the brands and the distilleries that we wanted to partner with that we're just not going to buy your stuff and hide it underneath our label. We have an audience, and we can essentially pay you to promote your product. And so that's sort of where a lot of them sort of saw the light, and they're like, okay, I like this idea. And so that was one of the kind of the genesis and how that all happened. And I think that honestly made us lucky enough to be able to get in with some of these distilleries, because many of them either A, don't do contract distilling, or B, if they have contracts, they're 3, 4, 5 years out and you can't get in the door. But by being able to say, we want to partner and we want to bring your brand and basically say, yes, like this is in this bottle, and we're very transparent about it. You can read it on the website. It's all in the press releases and everything like that. So it was just one more thing that we looked at as an opportunity to appease to our audience, but also kind of, get a foot in these doors too.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Sarah, I think we need to catch up on some super chats.
Go for it.
Here. Starting here with
Kelly.
With Kelly, who says, yeah, go ahead.
Oh,
Sorry.
very exciting to see you all chatting. We love both podcasts, Pursuit United and all It's Bourbon Night picks. Well, thanks, Kelly.
Boom. Thank you for that. The next one
Kelly.
here is from Michael saying, long-time watcher, first-time viewer, enjoying my first whiskey since 12/28, post-hip replacement surgery.
Ooh.
So almost a month. Break and rest was great. So
Reset. Yeah.
Yep, that's what that says.
Close
Reset.
enough.
It's so
Just
far
one letter
away.
off. It
We
is
really need
far.
to bring that closer.
Or we're going to get you those glasses we've been talking about.
Come on, stop.
Barry says, thanks to all of you for the education and information about bourbon and the community.
Very
Well, we
nice.
try, Barry. Thanks.
Barry.
Glad you appreciate it.
We got Michelle Martin here saying, it's so fascinating to hear how you started sourcing whiskey. Love this kind of content. Thank you,
Thanks,
Michelle.
Michelle.
And then Taste and Sensibility.
Says, love both your channels and can't wait to get a Bourbon Pursuit blend in Louisiana.
One day we'll get
Sealbox. Sealbox, right?
there. Sealbox says have it. Yes, I think there's actually, was looking earlier. There's less than 100 bottles left of United left on Sealbox now.
Woo. Get them while you can, folks. Hey, the world's top whiskey taster, Matt Porter, ADHD Whiskey, is in here. He says, if the bourbon world had DC and Marvel universes, I feel like we're watching a meeting of the leaders. If that doesn't make sense, just remember, I'm not very smart. It makes total sense. This
It
is
makes sense.
The bourbon, not metaverse, multiverse.
It feels like a
Multiverse.
compliment I don't deserve. But thanks, Matt.
Yeah, wow. We are
love Matt. He cracks me up.
official YouTube channel of
I think
bourbon.
we would be DC
Starting
in this
now.
comparison.
We're the official.
Not the comic books, the movies.
Oh, come on. Come on. They've got some good ones.
What? I'll wait.
Oh, and one more. Sarah.
From Santiago says, can't wait till the end of January. My It's Bourbon Night 3 Amigos is scheduled to show up on January 25th.
That's
Yes,
right.
we're also very excited.
It's our
I have
latest
so many
Knob Creek
projects like that require tasting.
Yeah.
I don't know what February 1st is going to be an interesting day, and I'll probably have to take off February 2nd.
pick. Oh, we also got Perry here in the house. Hey,
Thanks,
Perry.
Perry.
This is my bourbon
for
podcast.
watching.
Yeah. Let's get to some of our Patreon questions here.
Cool.
I like this one, the latest one here from Golf Whiskey, Glenn and Kathy, saying, Ryan and Kenny, if we looked at your contacts page on your cell phone, would we see names like Russell, Samuels, No, Elliott, Wheatley? How wired into the Kentucky bourbon movers and shakers are you?
Well,
I'll let
I'll
Ryan
give you
go
one
'cause he's-
better.
Spill the tea.
So
Not all of
you
it.
can go. You can go into my lawn care database, my customer database, and I probably have about 50 really high senior bourbon execs or distillers.
That's awesome.
And that's how I met a lot of them, was doing their yards. Chris Morris and Trey Zoller live in my neighborhood. So I see Trey walking around the path all the time, and Chris,
Character.
yeah, he is a character. He's awesome. But we don't have like the Russell or the Bean. I mean, I guess I do have Freddie Knows. I grew up with him, and Drew Colesbean's in my phone. So I don't know. There's quite a bit. That's not to brag. I just been friends with these people for a long time.
Yeah, same
Yeah,
here. I mean,
Barstown boy.
It's definitely, I don't have any of the no's or anybody like that in there, but the broader community of bourbon, that's not the elite of elites that you could say the big 8 or anything like that, but a lot of independent bottlers and NDPs and other people who source, because the cool thing is that now that we're in this world, we bounce a lot of those questions off of people that we are continually looking at. I mean, right now, like we've had, I'm not going to say any names, but we've had a few people in the industry that have been kind of advising us on a few different things for fundraising that we're kind of going through. And so that's just one of the things that we've been fortunate enough to be able to meet these people, and they're willing to share what the lessons that they learned early on, and kind of helping and guide us through the path that it is.
Yeah, I feel like that's one of the best things about the community is that I really haven't I can't think of any instances where I've met someone where like either we needed advice on something or they needed advice from us on something where we were like, nope, not willing to share that information. Figure it out on your own, everybody for themselves. I feel like it's the opposite. Like even if it's considered competitive, I still think that everybody kind of helps each other out.
Yeah, you just take a book out of the Master Distillers, or take a page out of the Master Distillers book, the rising tide raises all ships, and that sort of carries over even into the bourbon community, which is awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those unique industries where you can't have any secrets, because if you reveal your secrets, it takes 6 years to copycat them. So
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's might as well just be transparent.
Right, exactly.
I got another question here. This is again from our Patreon. This is from Scott. He said, missed out on Pursuit United Rye. Any plans for a second batch? How about a finished batch or light whiskey? So, yeah, we got our sample of the rye right here.
Yeah, so we are working on another United Rye batch. The cool thing about it is that in the first United Rye batch, it was a little bit over 2,000 bottles, and we were going to triple that for 2022. But after we started looking at some numbers and begging and pleading with our partners, we'll actually be able to 6X it. So we're going to be so we're going to have a much larger release of Pursuit United Rye in 2022, and we've got the barrels now sort of set aside and earmarked to be able to make that happen. So you're going to see that. When you talk about the finished side of things, we haven't really thought about doing finished cast or toasted or anything like that. Right now, our eyes are kind of on let's scale this and let's try to get as large a footprint as possible. Only after we kind of have a good roadmap set of where we need to be and making sure that we can get it in as many states and as many hands as possible is when we can start experimenting and doing other things. I don't think people realize is that when you want to go and you want to buy a $1,500 empty cask, like a cognac cask, and you dump whiskey in it, you have no idea how it's going to turn out. And for
it's
us,
a gamble.
We don't have the money.
We don't
to
have
sit
enough
there.
inventory and money to.
Yeah, so it's a gamble. You have no idea what's going to happen with it. It could turn sour, and you say, "Oh shit, there went $5,000." Like you have no idea what can happen. So that's not the risk that I'm willing to take right now. And you mentioned light whiskey. I don't get what the big deal is with light whiskey all of a sudden.
It's so high proof. I think that's
a hot topic.
Well,
yeah.
So I do know. Okay, I know partly the reason why, because everybody's starting to sell light whiskey only because it is the only thing that MGP has left that has a high age statement and that people are gravitating towards, and that's the only reason. At least it's the only reason I could think. I don't know why the consumer thinks that, well, we want to get light whiskey. I don't know. I haven't been blown away by any of them because it tastes okay, but I'm not, it's not bourbon. It's not, doesn't have the strong flavors that are there for me. But I just know that there was a lot of really had light whiskey by MGP on the open market with a high age statement. And that's what people are buying because people need age statements. And I'm sure that everybody else is getting maybe, I don't want to say burned out, but there's a lot of 4 or 5 year MGP on the market. So that's just my take on it.
Yeah.
Hot take. Kenny's hot take.
Hot take. Hot take.
Hot take.
He's not convinced.
Unpopular opinion.
Real quick, do you want to go ahead and tell people where they should look for these?
Yeah, so we are distributed in a few different states. So Kentucky, Tennessee, Texas, Georgia, Illinois, and Colorado. Did I get them all, Ryan?
Yep, I think so.
Okay. Yeah, and then we will be in Ohio in 2022, but we're also online at Sealbox, but you can just go to pursuitspirits.com, and there will be links there that direct you directly to Sealbox, and you can just purchase online and have it delivered to your door. Unfortunately, the rye is sold out. I'm very fortunate how quickly that went, and we're getting low on the amount of bourbon bottles that are in inventory online, but you'll have to call your local stores in a lot of these states because we're not going to be in every single package store. We're not going to be on bars, so you've got to call around and find the stores that are carrying them.
But like you said, you've got more coming this year, so they can be on the lookout.
Yes.
Yeah. Now this is our second bottle. If you're wondering, well, it's not even open. What are you guys doing? Because I was looking for our open one, and I guess we drank through it. So this is
yeah, I can't find it.
This is our backup, and actually we didn't get a rye, but thankfully, thank you guys.
We got a media sample.
Got the media sample there.
Thank you.
And we are fans of this stuff, obviously. You know, the 108 proof. I love how it's just that one over the typical 107. That's a nice little, you know, it's like, why have 107 when you can have 108? It's not 8-minute abs, it's 6-minute or 5-minute abs. Whatever.
And that was purely by chance. Like, so I was making these blends, and we don't have a hydrometer because we're broke, you know, and $1 million a day.
Those are expensive, yeah.
And so Drew, I would make a blend and be like, Drew, can I come over and use your hydrometer, you know, and then when we finally got one we liked, you know, that is, you know, what Pursuit United is now, it came in at 108, and I was like, well, that's good. It's not 107. It's not 101. You know, I had no idea what I just wanted it like to be whatever the best representation of it. I wasn't like checking the proof when I was making the blend. I just thought it tasted the best at that. So that's where it landed on, thankfully.
And you're talking about Drew at Willett? Is that
yes.
right?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a buddy of mine, so he would let me, you know, use their nice equipment and whatnot. And now that we have a partnership with Bardstown, we can go to their lab and
use their shiny toys. Yeah.
The folks over there are great.
We had that relationship.
Yeah. So it kind of sounds like to me that you guys were sort of kind of shown the path from, you know, for some other people who were like, hey, did you guys ever think of this? And then, you know, things kind of rolled that way. But rewind back before that, I'm always curious about this because it kind of seems like as we see bigger channels, bigger podcasts, bigger people who aren't producers but are, you know, in the media, I guess you have to call us.
In the biz.
In the biz, it still seems weird. But like they kind of start to see paths that they may go outside of their normal content, like might be focused on a festival or experiences or merch or this or that. So back before you guys went this route, did you have discussions of, you know, the podcast is going great, but what's going to be our next move?
So the whiskey, as you kind of mentioned, it all kind of was happen chance, and very fortunate that those phone calls came in and one thing led to another, and now we're spending $1.3 million a year in putting down new make barrels. That was just luck. And the podcast has kind of been the thing that I've looked at as sort of how do we take this in a strategic direction. And I'm so fortunate that the podcast has led us to where it is, because now we can use the part of the podcast as sort of a marketing engine. Like that's what gets the awareness out that we do have our own whiskey and we do have our own brand. And so kind of establishing that listener base that can then turn into customers and hopefully repeat customers over and over again is really what we're going for. As for, you know, monetizing the podcast, I hate ads. Like I can't sell for anything. Like I'm terrible at it. It's selling ads is terrible. It's just one of the things I just can't do. But it's a necessary thing. But thankfully we have somebody that we hired on as a full-time or not full-time, but a contract salesperson to actually go and make those connections and sell real estate for us. You know, monetizing is tough, and there's only a few different routes that you can do it. And for the podcast, of course, we sell ads. We've got a great Patreon community, and I know a lot of that is sort of hidden behind what we have for our private barrel club or a single barrel club with inside there. As much as I'd love to say that 1,053 people want to support us just because of our content, I know it's because there's some good barrel picks in there too. So I can't, you know, shy away from that. But that's been one of the things that it's tough to try to figure out, like, what do you do? Because a lot of podcasters, and you mentioned, Chad, a lot of content creators, they'll write a book or they'll do speaking engagements or they'll do consultation. I don't know. Like we just got kind of lucky in regards of coming out with a whiskey. And I'll always have to say hats off to Ryan because he's really found a calling when it comes to blending. And I know that Fred Minnick wasn't able to put United in his top 100 whiskeys of the year because he said this on a text message. He's like, I think you all might win, but we're not going to say that here or there, but it kind of just goes to show Ryan's prowess and how well he's been doing in regards to blending, because we used to do test blends back and forth to one another, and we try to see who has the better blend, and Ryan consistently won every single time. And so I said, scrap it. I'm done. You're going to be the blender. I'm just going to push spreadsheets. So that's the relationship we have.
Which I can't do at all. So we have a great, we counterbalance each other in that regard. But we don't, this is like not our primary source of income. And so we've always just done what we like to do and what we feel like doing. So it comes from like a genuine, like organic place. We're not like trying to like just hustle and make money just for ourselves. We're just doing what we do, what we offer is because we thoroughly enjoy it. Like right now, I'm having the time of my life, like doing blending, picking barrels, making connections, meeting people, learning from people. Like the podcast has been such a like great vehicle just for us to learn, and it's like the success that we've had with the Pursuit series and the Pursuit United is a testament to the guest we've interviewed, because you don't think that I was sitting with Trip and Joe and interviewing them and asking them about how they blend and this and that, and like every single Trey Zoller same way. I was just sitting and listening and learning is a culmination of what these brands are today. It's the culmination of the whole whiskey community we've been fortunate enough to interview. So I think that's why we're fortunate in that regard, that we've had so much influence from people who have been through that. So we've kind of got a nice head start on it, but we're having a lot of fun, and we're just enjoying the ride, really.
Yeah.
Ryan makes a good point.
I was just gonna say our dog walked over.
She just decided to come in and take a tour around the room
where the power strip is, and just like completely under the table here. And I was just thinking, all right, it's gonna go boop, but luckily it didn't. So sorry. Go ahead, Kenny.
Go lay down.
Oh no, I just want to kind of echo a little bit what Ryan said, is that this is not our full-time jobs. We both have day jobs and everything like that outside of bourbon, but hopefully, fingers crossed, that people are still drinking bourbon in 10 years, and the Pursuit Spirits thing is what'll get us to be able to do bourbon full time in the future.
Yeah, because I wanted to ask about that, because I know sometime or another when we ran into each other, you had said that it's hard to believe it, but you have a 10-year plan that's actually down on paper, and that's just hard to wrap your mind around. And I completely agree with that.
That's when I was like, "Am I doing it wrong?"
We don't have a tomorrow.
Wait, Chad, we need a plan.
But so that is the goal then. That makes sense, but it's good to hear you guys officially say it, that like this is obviously you guys have great day jobs, so it has to be to a point to where you can you're still pulling down them big bucks, right? But but that's the goal, right? Or is there anything else in that 10-year projection that you can kind of clue us in on? Any other like milestones at least that you're shooting for?
In regards of just milestones, what we're doing right now is just doing fundraising and trying to get really, I guess you could say, different ways that we can raise capital to be able to pay for this. As I mentioned earlier, we're putting down around $1.3 million a year in new fill barrels, which is around
Amazing.
It's around 1,300 barrels a year. And it scares the bejesus out of my wife every single time I tell her how much money we're spending. And I just have to
would die.
Well, I have to let her know that 1,300 barrels, like that's what we're doing in a year. Heaven Hill does that in one day. So we've got, as long as we continue to kind of go down our path and we're successful in what we're doing, and fingers crossed, as I mentioned, people are still drinking whiskey and bourbon in 10 years, then we'll be able to have our little slice of the pie. And we've got some cool plans. We've already figured by 2026, we're probably going to have to own some sort of storage warehousing for finished goods and stuff like that, only because we've finally got hit with our first really big federal excise tax bill, and so we've got to figure out how to not pay the government. I'll share it out. So as I was doing our calculation,
we're going to pay them, but under the correct.
Oh yeah. We want to kind of we want to make sure we want to be in the craft scene. And so just to kind of show you, like I was doing some of the calculations. So like in like 2030 or 2031, we'll end up if we're continuing to do what we do right now, we would end up paying the government around $975,000 a year in federal excise tax. Just an excise tax. And so I said, well, how can we not do that? And so again, that's kind of when you how can you go back to your Rolodex of people? Is there a way I can pay you less?
Yeah, that's one of the.
I was going to say,
that's why you have tax people. That's why they're like, tax people were just like, well, what you need to do is set this thing up and run everything through this, and then you categorize everything under this thing, and you're like, oh, great, that makes so much sense.
Do your tax stuff. Just do it.
Yeah.
Here, take my money.
There's no shell companies or anything like that, but it's
no
it's
offshore bank accounts.
Well, that we can save. No, I'm just kidding. But it's one of those things that you end up going to that Rolodex of people, and you say, okay, well, you're bottling here. How are you doing this? And everybody just kind of shares a lot of their secrets on how they're doing things. So how you can kind of get out of paying the big boy tax and how you can start paying the craft tax on some of this sort of stuff too. So it's interesting to kind of see, and that all kind of plays into the financial roadmap plan that I put out and said, okay, this is where we're going to be. And it was kind of also, we had to look and say, well, how far in debt do we want to go to be able to get barrels and come out of this and actually start paying ourselves way down the line.
Yeah.
Yes. So 2028 is maybe the first year, if the spreadsheet's correct. Spreadsheet's only as good as the numbers you put in it, right? But by 2028, we'll be able to take, because through this whole brand, Kenny and I have not taken $1 out of the company. We have just continued to buy whiskey, put it in whiskey, and the brand and everything, and so we're just have a great long-term vision for this. We're excited about it, but it is daunting seeing those zeros add up, keep adding, and it just keeps going and going, and then new things pop up you don't account for because we haven't been here before, and it's like, we were bottling at one place, and we're under a craft tax, so it was $3.50 a proof gallon. You go to BBC, and we love it there. It's worth it to us because they're a fantastic company, but because they're producing over 100,000 proof gallons, now we're at $13.50, a proof gallon tax. So you're like, ooh, ouchies. We didn't. So we're going to have to adjust the spreadsheet and our projections, and it may delay us getting paid one more year, but that's okay. So it's just a weird business. It's like I've started 2 other companies, and it's like you can take a product or a service and you can start, quickly monetizing it, to bring cash in. Whereas this, you have to have cash now, but you have to have cash for your future. And so it's it's just such a capital intensive business that it's, and people tell you that and you just don't realize it until you're dive head first into it. And so it's fun, but it is a little daunting, but we feel comfortable with, where the industry's going, and, people are spending a lot more money than we are, and much smarter than us. So we think we'll be okay.
Yeah.
And the good thing is the barrels are appreciating assets. Well, they are right now. So they gain in value. So if worst comes to worst, we can always just sell the barrels and close our brand down.
Close our shop. Yeah.
Yep.
Right.
This might be a perfect time to plug your Patreon page.
We need you all to stay with us for the next 8 years.
Patreon.com/bourbon.
If you could just sign an 8-year contract, that would be great.
Exactly.
Yeah, you can pay up front 1 year and get 5% off, but I haven't tried to figure out if they could pay back for 8 years.
Yeah.
That's too funny.
Got a last super chat of the evening here. Looking forward to your Knob Creek single barrel selection. Thanks,
Should David.
Be coming to you soon. Wow.
This is the part of the long-term planning where I usually get really uncomfortable and scared when we talk about that number, that amount of money. Right, when you want to grow and scale something, it's when you're like, okay, like you said, how much debt do we want to take on to make this happen? And I just don't. That's too rich for my blood.
But you know, the great thing about it is you all have free advertising.
Sure.
You have something that a lot of other people don't have. You know, you have your audience and you have a means to get the word out about it, which is great.
You know, the thing that we talk about a lot and what you kind of just said is that, you know, a lot of these big distilleries are investing way more money and have people whose job it is literally to just track trends and things like that. And they wouldn't be betting on it for no reason, right? They've got data to suggest that it's going to keep going that way. And, you know, I feel like if, you know, the wine boom in Napa in the 80s and 90s, like, so people were probably telling them then, oh, well, this won't last forever. And here we are 30 years later. And that's like, people go there from all over the world every single day. So,
yeah, I was having this conversation with my cousin over the weekend, like just in like real estate or stocks or this or that. You're like, you could always say, look, if you look back like 10 years and you're like, you knew it at the time, like that the real estate's going to keep appreciating, or the land or Google stock or whatever, you know, Amazon, this or that. You're like, 10 years ago, you'd be like, yeah, it's probably, but you just didn't take that chance. And it's like, and I kind of feel the same way about this. It's like, we know it. Let's do it, not pass up this opportunity. And it's one we don't take lightly, and we're very grateful we have the opportunity, and we're going to grow it in a responsible way and do it the best way we can, like, and be a good steward, because we've been so blessed in this to have the opportunity to do this. You know, it's the stars have aligned way too much to think that we've done it all on our own, and there's some kind of like divine calling, you know, for this. And so it's like, we gotta do it right. You know, that's how Kenny and I feel about this. And I think we're headed there. But to your point of free advertising, Trey, I was having lunch with him last week, and he was like looking at our numbers, and he's like, well, what are you spending on sales and marketing right now? I was like, well, zero. And he's like, you don't have a sales staff? And I was like, no. And he's like, that's crazy. Like, when I was doing this, I was traveling around the country. I had 2 people, you know, and this and that. And so we're blessed in that regard. We have a microphone, and we're one of the few brands that have a loyal audience and willing to try us out, you know, based on, you know, what we've accomplished through the podcast. So we're very grateful for that. And the challenge will be going from, you know, educating, you know, from going from a whiskey geek to a, you know, everyday consumer. And so we got to kind of wrap our heads around that and say, you know, why do we feel like we're better than, you know, there's some fantastic products, you know, out there that are cheaper than us, and why should they take a chance on us, and why do we offer value? And so that's what we want to work on and communicate, because we do feel like we offer something that's unique and, you know, good for people to try and have on their bar. And it's an interesting story that they can share, because that's what all good bourbon brands are. You know, it's like, that's why you invest in them and keep buying those bottles, because you want to spend those times with your friends and talk about each brand and that. So that's what we're just trying to craft and create as we get to our final scale point. I'm rambling here, so
You're not.
No, it's
I'm
beautiful.
Very interested.
Beautiful. Brought a tear to my eye. It's beautiful.
Well, we really admire you guys and what you guys have built. Seriously, it's so impressive.
I mean, yeah, it really is, and it's sort of like, you know, to use an analogy, it's like you guys go out and just play pickup games of basketball in the park, and then one day you get called to the big dance. You know, you're in the NBA. It's like you go from doing something just for the love of it to actually making it.
Yeah.
And the love obviously still stays there for it, but, you know, it's just super cool when what do you call it? A couple of our contemporaries, I think I'm using that right, you know, enter into the business that we sit here and talk about. It's just super cool.
Yeah, we're like, one day when we grow up, we want to be just like Bourbon Pursuit.
Oh no, y'all are doing great.
Yeah. No,
you don't want to be us.
Those kind words.
You can sleep a lot better than we can right now.
Well, yeah, we're not spending, you know, over $1 million, so there is that.
But I mean, I would say, like, you guys taking on this does inspire us, not to necessarily, you know, grow up and be just like you, but to ask ourselves the question of, like, what is that next step for us? But
also coming next year, Bourbon Night United.
Stop that.
I couldn't think of any other names. I'm sorry.
You're going to get a cease and desist, Chad.
Yeah, I was about to say, we trademarked that now. Come on.
They don't have lawyers. You think they have lawyers?
Yes.
They just talked about how...
Oh, yeah.
I know you don't. So.
You ever heard of Brian Harrow? No.
Stephen Corn. Stephen Corn's our
Whiskey
lawyer.
Justice.
But yeah, I feel like, you know, you guys doing like this and stuff, it's really paving the way for other people to ask that big question of like, well, what is next? What do I take on? Is there a way that I can take what I've built and share even more of what I've learned and, you know, developed
I dare to dream?
To share it even more with people.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Right. Totally. I mean, and thank you for those kind words. It really means a lot to us, and we can't do as well as we couldn't do what we do if it wasn't for folks like you too, because we know that there's a lot of people like you that are influential in the whiskey media, and be able to hear you all say you like the whiskey and you would recommend it. It means the world to people like us. As Ryan said, we're very insecure. What we think tastes good to us, but we want to make sure that, you know, it also tastes great to the, you know, everybody else out there. But it was honestly, it's just all the right timing, right place, right opportunity. The one phone call that all sort of changed it, and so it was just kind of fortuitous in how that all happened. And who knows, you might get the phone call one day too.
Oh, fingers crossed.
We want to go to the
And
big
when you
dance.
do, we'll hopefully save you some steps that we've
Oh yeah, that's right.
that we've
It's like
failed through.
This
so.
is recorded. You know I can play this back for you later.
right.
Yeah.
I'm just teasing.
You all paved the way, so the road's a little less bumpy. That's always
right.
That's always cool. Yeah.
Before we get
we'll
to our
take the
last
bumps
super
for you.
chats. Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Before we get to our last super chats, real quick, I'm sure everybody knows where to find you, but just in case, do you guys want to let everybody know?
Sure. Make sure you subscribe to Bourbon Pursuit on wherever you get your podcasts. That's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Pandora, wherever you listen to podcasts. You can go, just type in the word bourbon, and we'll be up there, hopefully towards the top of your search results. And if you want to try our whiskey, go and check it out, pursuitspirits.com. There's only Pursuit United available online right now. There are 2 other single barrels of Pursuit series that are available online, all through Sealbox. And of course, we are in the states of Kentucky, Tennessee, Texas, Georgia, Illinois, and Colorado. So if you happen to be in those areas, go and call around to some liquor stores, and hopefully they carry it. And thank you for your support, and let us know what you think. We're always open to the criticism as long as it's nice.
I always say
As long as
gentle
it's fair.
feedback, please.
Yeah.
I like
yeah.
feedback, just gentle feedback. You know, don't be like, you suck. I'll cry.
Only give us
And,
feedback if you've tried it, because we've had a lot of people just rag
man.
on it
Yeah.
that don't even try it. And you're like, you know, and you're like, come on now.
Isn't that the best?
Yeah.
Like, I worked for thousands of hours to bring this to you. What did you do?
And you didn't even drink
You did
it.
nothing.
Yeah.
It's just Tater whiskey from Tater Podcasters, you know, this and that.
Yeah.
It's like,
Mhm.
you're like,
I
I
can
get
hear
it.
it now. I can hear it.
We've heard it.
And Scott Pigsley, who's been doing a great job of putting things like the pursuitspirits.com in the chat and your all's Patreon. Also, very nice, said you could also become a patron of It's Bourbonnight for as little as $1 a month. First access to barrel picks and some behind-the-scenes content. That's patreon.com/itsbourbonnight. So there's that.
Yeah.
I didn't say it. He did. I'm just reading it. Thank you, Scott. And, of course, whiskeyambitions.com for merch. Not this great T-shirt. Can't get that there. But pretty sure you can get that over if... go to their Patreon. I think you can
Go to our Patreon side. Yes. You can get those T-shirts over on our side.
And thank
Yeah.
you all for what you all do, you know, for the whiskey community. I'm a fan. I watch the show all the time. Like, it's great content. Like, we just don't even touch the YouTube space because you all do such a great job. It's like...
You guys
yeah,
got
Well,
to...
thanks.
You guys
Yeah.
are getting up. I mean, if people don't... I mean, some people might not know, but yeah, you guys are also on YouTube. Let's go give them a subscribe there. And you guys are... You're getting up there in the numbers. And you put out some good stuff. The Whiskey Quickies, that's great.
We love those.
Great
yeah.
content, very digestible content, as they say.
Snackable.
So, that's great. And then if you want to watch some long form stuff, your all's round tables on there and everything. It's good stuff. So congratulations on that. Oh, and your TikTok.
How could we not mention?
I mean, I guess that's specifically you, Kenny, right? Or is
Oh, yeah.
or is
I've
that-
only had one
yeah.
video. I had to get paid for to get on there.
Every time I'm scrolling, Kenny's face pops up, and I'm like, oh, I know him.
Get out of my phone, Kenny. What are you doing?
It was funny. I had somebody ask me about that the other week, and they were like, "So what made you want to do TikTok?" I said, honestly, it was my break away from bourbon at first because I was on it before the pandemic started, and it was my sort of way that I can break away. And it's because you look at Facebook, I look at Twitter, I look at Instagram, I scroll, and it's just bourbon, 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 bourbon. And I get on TikTok, I was like, it's a whole new world. It's a landscape that hasn't been touched or ruined by bourbon yet. And then I get on there and I said,
I'm going to ruin it.
Well,
Someone's got to run it. It's going to be Kenny.
Yeah. And so it was just one of those things. I started just taking popular, things that were going viral and sort of just put a bourbon spin on them. And that's sort of what I ended up doing, how I had fun with it. But now there's there's a big bourbon community on TikTok now and Bourbon Talk. And so there's that's kind of got its own lay of the land over there.
Yeah, for sure. We're on there, but we haven't really put much effort into it.
We need to get back into that.
That's a New Year's resolution, actually.
We write down all of our ideas and then we just never make them. It's like once the idea's out of my head, it's like in my mind it exists, but it's not out there doing anything.
Then they're not relevant anymore.
Yeah.
Like, oh well.
I do the same thing. I feel better if it's in a Evernote app, like if I write it down there, and even if it doesn't happen, as long as it's there,
if someone ever stole my phone and got a hold of all my notes, I mean, they'd be like, what if these are writings of a crazy person? What is this? Well,
I know my kids, when I pass away, they're like, look at all the things Dad didn't achieve, that he wanted to.
Perfect.
That's hilarious.
Well, okay, I was wrong about our last super chat of the evening. That actually belongs to Michelle, who says, our Nub Creek is arriving on Thursday, and we can't wait. Thanks, Chad and Sarah, for the awesome content and barrel picks. You're very welcome, Michelle, and thank you for that super chat.
I hope you enjoy it.
Yeah. Sorry we had a pretty big thread of Patreon questions that we just, as time goes by quickly. So sorry we didn't get to those, but
they're on Patreon.
Throw one more out there. Throw one more out there. We'll answer.
Sure. Let's see. How about the first one from Kelly? That would be fair. How exciting. We love both podcasts. I would like to know if they could collaborate with anyone to make a whiskey, who would it be?
Ooh, so if you just had to choose like one group or person to collaborate with.
Or distillery, I guess. Distillery. Yeah. Your
dream
I couldn't
collaboration. Say it's Bourbon Night, not to collaborate with them. Is that?
Oh,
see, but you could do that.
Wow, I wasn't even expecting that.
I'm like, it's over. The stream is over. You don't have to butter us up.
Hey, let's make it alive or dead. Let's make it fun.
Ooh.
Dead or alive.
Like, who are you inviting to dinner?
Gosh, and when you say collaborate, I'm assuming like come out with some sort of product that we both put together and we say this is what we're doing. Oh, buddy. All right, fine. I'll go with National Distillers if we're gonna go alive.
Oh,
yeah. And that's because we all tried old
Good
Crow.
answer.
We tried some of those old granddads. I don't know what we would bring to the table, to be quite honest with you.
Just tasting it and being like, yep, that's good. That's good too.
Yeah, exactly. I was like,
I approve.
We don't need to blend anything. This is fantastic.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, that would be a good one. For probably a live, gosh, I'd love to do. It would be really cool to come out with like my own small batch select of Four Roses. Like my version of it. That would be really cool. That's probably what I have to go because you have such different. It's not just, whereas everyone else is mostly just same distillate, aged in different tiers and, it's 20 different brands. They actually have like, the different recipes. So I think that would be, from a blender's perspective, that would be really cool to come up with a united 4-batch or 4 Roses small batch select.
Ooh,
that's cool.
That's got a good ring to it.
Well, we'll be with
just call Brent Elliott.
Put that in
we'll
your
be with them
Evernote.
on Wednesday, so maybe we'll bring it up.
Tell
to
him hi.
They'll probably say hell no.
Yeah. Wow.
Oh, that's good.
Well, that was good. That was a good question.
I do want to plug one more thing. Now that you say it, next Wednesday we'll be launching a second podcast called Behind the Pursuit from Bourbon to Brand, and so it is we have a host, Brian Bikey, and he is basically interviewing Ryan and I on what it's like to build a brand and through another podcasting meme. So we'll start promoting that as soon as it starts hitting Apple Podcasts and Spotify. I know I put it on our website a little bit earlier on Pursuit Spirits, but it's called Behind the Pursuit. So expect that to go live next Wednesday.
Nice.
That's awesome.
So
Yeah.
Very relevant to our conversation.
How germane to the topic.
Yes.
It
really was.
That's really good.
I feel like this was planned.
Yeah, it's a deep dive into like all the shit we've gone through. So
Yeah.
it's,
Well, then I will be tuning
because everybody just thinks that you start a bourbon brand. Oh, it's easy. You just buy barrels and throw a label on it, put it on the shelf, And
Yeah.
it's
If only.
a much more challenging and nuanced business. But we're happy to share it, and we're big fans of like how I built this, and so we're kind of trying to bring that side to the bourbon industry.
Yeah. Wow. Well,
Awesome.
that's great. Yeah, we'll tune into that for sure. Well, guys, thanks so much for for joining us tonight. Had a great time, and I would like to get both of you on for our now what we have renamed what's in your glass. What's in my glass?
in my glass?
What's in my glass? Our sort of game show.
I'm shocked that you didn't play the song. Don't do it.
I got it.
Don't do it.
Okay, fine. But yeah, it would be you all against each other would be cool because Kenny, you've admitted that Ryan has the better blending prowess, but how about who's best at identifying?
It's a blind tasting, spin the
tasting.
wheel game and answering questions about what you're
He's pretty good at that.
I'm
Yeah.
in.
It's
That's
fun.
what- All right.
He blends it, but I taste it. I get final rule. That's kind of how it works. So.
That's
Nice. Okay. I like it.
All right. Well, we will definitely hit you guys up to be on that in the future.
Yeah, for sure.
Anytime, would love to.
Sweet. And for everyone watching, thank you for watching.
Thanks for watching. Thanks for sticking with us into some overtime.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for sticking with us into some overtime. We usually don't go this long.
But
But for you guys, anything.
when you got good company, it's not like overtime. It's just like
That's
that.
all right.
No,
Just,
so.
just like catching up with old friends,
Yeah, really.
Totally.
We'll see you guys next Sunday where we
Yes.
do our draft for the Bourbon Bowl. Draft our bottles. It'll be
Bourbon
fun.
Bowl 4.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a good one.
I'm still losing, in case anyone
2 to 1. 2 to 1 here.
Will I tie it up this year? Probably not. Stay tuned.
We shall see. Yeah.
Coming out hot of dry January.
Right, exactly.
Oh my God,
What better
yeah.
way to end dry January?
Talk about jumping into the deep end.
Right.
That's the Bourbon Bowl. All right, guys. Well, we will see you next Sunday. Till then, drink more bourbon. Where's the button? I always do this. I am so great, and then I'm like, where's the button? Oh, here it is.